Okay, hi, it's Michael here from Custom Bike Fit, and today's review is on the Felt IA. There's a number of different models in the range with the Felt IA, but really the differences are between the FRD, which is the bike sitting on the left hand side here, and the IA Advanced, which is the bike sitting on the right. And the major difference is at the front end, and the FRD has an integrated front end, and the IA Advanced has an independent front end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the common features on these bikes, and then I'm going to address the aero bars at the end. Just as a note, the FRD is twice the price of the IA Advanced, and so from a if someone came to me straight away and said, which one would you recommend buying, and you're set on buying a Felt, I'd be buying the IA Advanced. Much better bang for your buck. Anyway, a lot of the clients that come to me are doing long course triathlon, so 70.3 and Ironman, and I'm always thinking about, because I've raced myself, where am I going to carry everything? And it's no secret that I'm a fan of top tube storage and behind the seat storage. You can often get these at third party, but Felt is one of those companies that offers this as part of their solution. So you can see we've got a top tube storage box on both of the bikes, and we've got behind the seat storage on both the bikes as well. Now, I've highlighted the top tube storage box is just sitting up here. Okay, it's two pieces, it's sitting up here. And the reason I've highlighted this is because it's unlike any other top tube storage that I've seen. Generally, these things, they used to be called bento boxes, and what they do is it's just a box that sits independently and on top of the top tube, and they're fixed by two bolts, and you can remove them. You can undo those two bolts and take it off. I don't want it, don't want to train with it, it's going to put it on for race day, you can do that. I don't want it at all, or I do want it on, or I want to replace it for something that's bigger or something that's smaller, or you've got the ability to do that. With the Felt, you don't. So what they've designed is this trough, which kind of sits inside the frame of the bike. Okay, so it's just kind of like that. My drawing is terrible, but there you go. Now, and then you've got a rubber casing that sits on top. It might sound really neat, but the problem is that what happens is, because of the shape of this, you get a lot of stuff which gets caught in this portion here. You can imagine, the sort of things that people put in here. Okay, gels, yeah, Ventolin inhaler if you're an asthmatic, but more often it's things like salt tablets, it's Voltaren, it's Nurofen, it's Panadol, those kind of things, right? And stuff, anything that's small gets caught in the bottom of this trough. And I've had a lot of clients come through, they're running electronic gearing, so their Di2 junction box sits in here, and I need to access that. And I'll go into this box, I found all sorts of stuff. Now, the practicality is that when you're training or racing, and you're putting your hand in here, and you're trying to get into this area where those salt tablets, for example, are, they're caught, you might get two fingers in here. It's really difficult to bring stuff out, okay? And in order to get one hand in here, or some fingers in here, you've only got one hand on the base bar. So if it's windy, or if the road's uneven, or if you're sitting in traffic, you don't want to spend too long in that position. So I've gone in there to get something, I couldn't get it out, my hand comes out, and a few minutes later, back in, out, back in, out. And these rubber casings that sit over the top, you can probably see, I don't know if you can see here, sort of some bolts that fit in here. And what often happens is this rubber casing comes loose. Whether it's because people's hands have been in and out all the time, I don't know. But I've had so many come through, and either this thing's loose, it's flapping around when they ride, it's like, the rider's telling me how annoying it is, or it's come off altogether, or in frustration, the rider's ripped it off. And what that does, it leaves a gaping hole in the frame. So people put things like duct tape and electrical tape over the top, because you're looking down your bike, there's a big hole in there, big hole in the frame. So, you know, they tape it over and it becomes redundant. And it's not as if you can go to a third party like Profile Design or XLab and put on another bento box. They don't fit on there. So I wanted to highlight this because it seems like a really nice feature, but I'm not 100% sure it's practical. Okay. We go behind the bike, behind the seat storage. Yes, that's available now on all of the felts, and that's a really good idea. The bike itself is triathlon specific. That is to say, you can't use these bikes for UCI time trials. So what you generally find is you've got a more triathlon geometry, and typically you'll find that in the seat tube angle. So triathlon bikes is generally more forward facing. That seat tube angle is more aggressive. Now, with a lot of manufacturers of triathlon bikes, what they have is like a channel, whether it sits on the top of the seat post or whether it sits in the seat post itself. There's a channel there that allows you to move the clamping system back and forth, because you want to have a nice wide variety of range in the saddle position. Okay, so for example with Cervelo, they advertise 75 to 79 degrees in that range here. So that's just the clamp moving back and forth along a channel. And on the Quintana Roo, for example, you can go from 76 to 83 degrees. The other thing you can do, once you put that clamp in place and you've moved that back and forth along the channel to where you want it, you can then make fine adjustments with the saddle. You move the saddle back and forth. So that gives you a wide variety of movement. The problem with the felt is we've got a very forward-facing seat tube angle, and it changes depending upon the size of the bike, which doesn't mean we don't have an awful lot of fore-aft movement in the saddle itself. So the 48 centimeter frame has a 79.5 degree seat tube angle. The 51 is 79, the 54 is 78.5, the 56 is 78, and the 58 is 77.5. So we don't have the adjustability that we do have in a number of other bikes. And what I tend to find is, you know, that might mean that you've got to jam the saddle all the way back, but we just don't have the movement here that we have on a lot of other triathlon bikes. And the clamping system that Felt use, not just with their TT bikes but with some of their aero road bikes as well, is really poor. That clamp, I find that the bolt often gets rounded out, which means you can't adjust them, you can't tighten them or loosen them. Because of the system that they use in here, it's not easy to get the saddle to the angle you want. So an experienced fitter or mechanic, they could do it, but I get riders that come in and their saddle is sitting up in the air, or the saddle is sloping down because they can't adjust the front end of they can't adjust the saddle, so it's either sitting up or it's sitting down because of this clamping system here. It's just not easy to adjust. Anyway, so if we don't have a lot of adjustment, this is where I'll move on to the front end of the bike. If we don't have a lot of adjustment at the back of the bike, I want a lot of adjustment at the front end of the bike. Okay, so if my rider is in a position where they're very forward, that's not too much of a problem being forward, because we want to be forward and we want to open up the hip angle. Okay, but I want to be able to move the front of the bike, because I don't know if you've ever noticed this yourself, whether you're on a road bike or a time trial bike, if you're getting a lot of pressure on your hands, it's generally because the handlebars are too close to you, right? And if we set our saddle position, our height and our fore-aft, and we don't want to move that, right? I don't want to move the saddle back. If the transmission is good, I want to move the front of the bike. Now you can see here, with the FRD, the base bar sits right on top of the head tube. It's clamped into positions no stem. There's a spacer that sits underneath here, and it's important to know, because there's a couple of spacers you can put in, what that needs to be. So another compelling reason to get a fit before you buy the bike. But you can't push these bars forward. With the IA Advance, you've got a stem, and this is, it's Felt's own stem, but they do come in different lengths. There's nothing to stop you from changing that length out. And in fact, I have used third-party products and seen bikes with third-party stems. For example, Profile Design's Area Ultimate stem to allow their front hydration system to lock into place here on this Felt IA Advanced. So we've got a problem here with the FRD in that we can't move the base bar. All right, we can't move it forward, which sometimes means we've got a lot of weight on the hands. The other thing is that this is fixed as well, which means, you know, we don't have a lot of movement here at the front of the bike. Now, I'm not a fan of these. Felt call these an F-bend extension. I don't like them. I much prefer this ski bend. So when riders have come in with this bike, we've often changed these extensions. I've put on the Profile Design 50-degree extensions. 51 Speed Shop I've used in the past. Sync Ergonomics have done a number of bikes, a number of felts with the Sync Ergonomics extensions. But the other thing is the arm cups. The arm cups is very little fore-aft movement. And again, if I'm in a forward position, I want to move the elbow forward. I want to come forward on the bike, lay into it. So I need movement in these arm cups. And particularly because of this clamping system here, I want to have my elbows on one side and my hands on the other. I don't want, you know, move those arm cups here and have all that weight on this side of the bike or on this side of the clamp. So what I've done again in the past, I started off taking these off and putting on Profile Design F19, and then I went to Sonic Ergo, and I've now been using, as well as the Sonic Ergo, the Sync Ergonomics arm cups and 51 Speed Shop. There's a whole bunch of variety of arm cups that have a lot more real estate and a lot more fore-aft movement. Okay, so just something to be aware of at the front of the bike. Again, I'm a fan of an independent front end because we've got a lot more adjustability. Now, if we look at this picture up here of Marinda Carfrae, and she's on a felt, I'm not sure whether that's an FRD or whether that's an IA Advanced, but you can see the front end of the bike's been changed. It doesn't look anything like these. They are Zip Aero bars. Okay, and you've got that ski extension. Okay, and look at the size of the arm cups. They're huge. And look at where her elbow's positioned. She's at the front of the cup because she's trying to stretch out. She's trying to lengthen her body, which drops her back angle, moves her hands closer to her face, reduces this frontal surface area. So again, this bike has some limitations. We've talked about the top tube storage. We've talked about this angle of the seat posts and the lack of adjustability here. Okay, that's not a, you know, don't buy the bike, right? But if you're going to buy one of these and you don't have that movement at the back, let's make sure we have movement at the front. So I'm going with the IA Advanced. This current setup is nice. We probably need to change these arm cups, you know, allow for $99, $100. But otherwise, pretty much good to go because we've got adjustability at the front end and we have those, you know, those storage options. Again, I'm fitting this in. Anyway, that's my review of the Felt IA. I hope you've you know, found it interesting. If you've got some comments, then please pop them below. Any questions? And if there's a bike that you wanted me to do a review of, send me a message or again put that in a comment. I'm going to do the Quintana Roo next. So thanks for watching the video and I'll look forward to seeing you again in the near future.